Hello everybody, this is ManuS and welcome back to yet another Legends of Runeterra spoiler review. Time to catch up on all the spoilers from the last 2 days. I decided to put this one into one video because the first batch was basically 3 cards and not even a new mechanic, so there wasn't really a whole lot of point to make a video just for 3 cards. So I waited till we got the champion to talk about all of the cards at once and also have a bit more context to talk about them. So, you know the drill. If you're watching and haven't subscribed yet, like a lot of you do, please consider hitting the subscribe button down below. Only takes a couple seconds and really helps the channel out. And now, before we dive into the cards, let me briefly introduce you to today's sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by NordVPN, one of the leading virtual private network providers out there. A virtual private network keeps your data secure and yourself anonymous while using the internet. NordVPN comes with super fast servers, allows you to unlock your favorite entertainment websites like Netflix. They provide a 30-day money-back guarantee. They also have an included cybersecurity suite, which acts as an ad blocker to boot. They don't lock any of your data, provide a 24/7 customer support, and you can use it on up to 6 simultaneous connections, so one account covers most or all of your electronic devices. And most importantly, they don't have any bandwidth limit, so you can use it non-stop without it getting throttled, which is particularly important for heavy users like us. It also won multiple awards and comes highly recommended by top technology experts. So if you're still surfing online without a VPN, now is the time to change that. Get NordVPN now, 70% off for a 3-year plan, including 1 month extra for free using the code ManuS or the personalized link in the description down below. And now on to today's content. Alright, so let's talk spoilers. This is the badge from 2 days ago, basically the first half leading up to Diana. Also, I was correct in my assumption, not a big surprise honestly, and not a hard assumption to make, that Diana will be the 3rd Targon Champion and part of the badge. Now we just have to wait and see if I'm also right about Aurelian Soul being the last one. But we'll probably learn more today or probably tomorrow. Maybe the spoilers today won't be as clear on who the champion tomorrow will be, but we'll see in no time. But it's also pretty clear by now that it's 4 Targon, 3 non-Targon champions, just as I speculated at the beginning. So nice that my predictions were kind of on point and that their structure and handling is kind of like reasonable and smart and common sense enough that you can properly sort of predict and assess it, I think, just by making some reasonable assumptions and figuring out what's going on. That's, I guess, a good sign that they're making sense. But yeah, anyway, first we have Lunari Duskbringer. Looks kind of unspectacular at first. It's a 1-cost 2/1, so just like your average 1-drop. But when Duskbringer is summoned, you create a Dusk Petal Dust in hand. So what's a Dusk Petal Dust? Let's take a look. This is a Dusk Petal Dust. It's a 1-cost burst spell, and the next unit with Nightfall you play this round costs 1 less. So this basically is a free Nightfall enabler, allowing you to on-curve Nightfall a unit, and also do so for free without an investment of a card, which is going to be super crucial in Nightfall decks. I suspect there will be a Targon Shadow Isles sort of Nightfall aggro or aggressive mid-range deck probably with Diana and Nocturne, but we'll get to Diana in a bit. But yeah, this is going to be a prime 1-drop. It also means that something like say the Shadow Isles 1-drop suddenly costs 0 and stuff like that, and you can play a bunch of stuff that way. Initially I thought it would reduce the cost for all Nightfall units by 1 for that turn, which would have been amazing and very explosive, but it actually doesn't. It just reduces the next unit. We don't know if there will be other cards that generate Dusk Petal Dust. At least for now, probably not, I think, because I feel like they would have revealed them in this badge. But there's still a reasonable chance that down the line we will get more cards generating Dusk Petal Dust, maybe in the second or third batch of Targon cards in a way to sort of bolster up the archetype. We don't know. Because it seems like the kind of card that isn't like a one-time thing just on Duskbringer. But yeah, Duskbringer looks pretty solid. Very nice role player for this type of deck, and kind of important. Noteworthiest, I think, this like Nightfall Shadow Isles Targon deck will probably still play something like the Daybreak 1-drop, since it's just a free roll, and that's what I meant. Like, it's not really a mechanic. You can just shove it into any deck where it's good. You might even end up with the like Daybreak 2-drop as well, which is actually a bit like of a sort of lower flavor fail, because, you know, they kind of are enemies, it seems, in the lore, and shouldn't like fit this naturally together, and maybe sort of design would have been nicer where Daybreak and Nightfall are a bit like antithetical to each other in the sense that they don't work that well together. But it's kind of ironically, you can even sometimes use like Daybreak cards to open up your turn and set up Nightfall. Like, you can play like the 1-cost Daybreak unit later in the game for 1, and then play Nightfall cards after and stuff like that. So it's a bit weird in a flavor sense, but oh well. Like I said, Daybreak is kind of like a boring, lame-ish mechanic that just sort of is nice name-wise because Nightfall exists, but it's not an actually like interesting or cool or creative mechanic. It's just very bland. Nightfall is a bit more interesting design-wise in terms of like deck construction and play sequencing and stuff. Anyway, on to the next card. Next we have Lunari Stalker. It's a 2-cost 2/3, and with Nightfall she gets elusive permanently. So basically, if you go like turn 1 Duskbringer, turn 2 this with Dust, she is a 2-cost 2/3 elusive for 2 with like a condition, which is pretty decent. And like, you can also go turn 3, say the Solari Soldier, or what the name was, like the 1-drop, and then play this as well, making it even more appealing to be sort of heavy 1-drops, like triple 1-drop deck maybe, with like the Solari 1-drop, Duskbringer, and the Shadow Isles Nightfall 1-drop as 3 1-drops to sort of curve out. You might not even have room for the Solari 2-drop, because there might be enough 2-drops that you already want, but that's too early to say. But yeah, it's a very solid card. Even without Nightfall, it's a fine 2-drop, not great, but fine. And with the Nightfall, 2/3 elusives, pretty solid for 2. And last but not least, for this half of the spoiler batch, we have Crescent Guardian. It's a 3-cost 3/3 Overwhelm, and with Nightfall it turns into a 5/3. So basically a bit better than the like Ballista in Noxus, but needs a condition. And without Nightfall, the card's kind of underwhelming. But granted that the archetype can support this card well enough, it's a pretty solid card in the deck, and the fact that the deck looks like it's going to be reasonably aggressive. So could be hit or miss, could be a bit too weak, but could also be quite good. Once again, a bit too early to tell without having the whole deck in front of you and kind of seeing how well the things fit together and how well you can support what stuff. But yeah, certainly a potentially very relevant constructed role player for this type of Nightfall sort of aggressive tempo-y deck. Alright, so now we're just going to take a look at the whole Diana spoiler batch as the whole sheet as usual, just like before, since that batch actually has been quite big while this has been very small. So let's take a look. Alright, so here we have Diana, just as I expected. She looks pretty cool. A bit surprised that her skin isn't white. I somehow remembered her skin to be white in League and also in the League video, but maybe I remembered that wrong. Maybe that was just the skin or something. Or maybe that's like a later version of her. I'm not super versed in the lore. But yeah, she looks pretty cool. She's a, like artwork-wise, she's a 2-cost, 2/2 quick attack. And with Nightfall, she gets Challenger this round. And she levels up when you've activated Nightfall 4+ times. So she basically has the reverse level, like the opposite level condition of Leona. Except for Daybreak, especially on curve for Leona, is much, much easier than for Nightfall for Diana, given that, yeah, as I mentioned, Nightfall is much higher opportunity cost to activate, and therefore for Nightfall might take quite a while. So the level up condition is like much, much harder than Leona. And to be fair, a 2-cost 2/2 quick attack is a bit underwhelming. Like 2/2 is kind of the rough spot usually in the game. You usually want to be 2/3 or 3/2, either to trade up or not trade down. Like the 3/2s trade up and down, while the 2/3s don't trade up and don't trade down. Basically, they usually mostly trade with other 2-drops and beat other 1-drops and some of the more utility 2-drops that have weaker stats, but line up poorly against like most bigger units. Also, Nightfall on 2 obviously is pretty rough. So on curve, other than Dusk Petal Dust, you will usually not be able to activate this. I guess if you don't have a 1-drop and have like a 1-cost spell of some sort, like a burst spell or something, that might work, but not even sure how much like good options there will be. That's something that I'll try and figure out when the deck comes out. There's a chance that the Nightfall deck might not end up playing her, I'm not sure. But to be fair, when she's leveled, she's pretty powerful. She's a 2-cost 3/3 quick attack, which suddenly is a pretty nice stat line. And when you Nightfall, or when you activate another Nightfall, she gets +2/+0 and Challenger this round. So for every Nightfall, she gets +2/+0. So if you like double Nightfall, she is like a 7/3 quick attack that basically can kill anything she challenges, which is pretty nice. Also, her champion spell is pretty great. It's also a really good card. In general, it's Pale Cascade. It's a burst spell. You give an ally +2/+1 this round, which is very solid for a 2-cost burst spell. And with Nightfall, you draw a card. So yeah, a cantrip combat trigger like that, that card seems incredibly powerful, honestly. It's a bit weaker on open attacks because you need another, ideally, burst spell to get the Nightfall active, but other than that, really powerful effect. Basically, a card economy free +2/+1 combat trick is huge, especially on stuff like Diana with quick attack. So Diana is a bit iffy. The front side is kind of weak, like you need the right units onto to get some value out of her, and you need the Nightfall. But if you Nightfall her and have a target, she's actually a pretty nice swing on 2 or 3. Once again, she might be like a turn 3 play with a 1-drop and stuff like that. It's gonna be kind of interesting to build these Nightfall decks. Like I said, like Nightfall is actually kind of interesting to build and make work and sequence, while Daybreak is just kind of lame and you just shove the card in your deck and you just go up the curve, and it hard like 90% of the time or whatever, it won't even matter that your card says Daybreak. It's basically just summon and that's it. So next we have Cygnus the Moonstalker. It's a 6-cost 4/2 with Nightfall. Cygnus and an ally of your choice get elusive this round, so it's kind of like a big elusive swing. Depends a bit on what targets we have, but say even with like a level Nocturne you hit for 10, but it's quite fragile, also requires Nightfall, and the unit is pretty expensive. Sure, you can sometimes do it like on turn 5 with the Dusk Petal Dust. That's another thing to keep in mind. Dusk Petal Dust actually allows you to sort of ramp virtually, because it lets you turn spell mana into real mana, so you can play stuff ahead of the curve. Like you can, for example, play a Nocturne on turn 3 if you skipped turn 2 or floated at least 1 spell mana turn 2, and that's pretty interesting. Like a turn 3 Nightfall Nocturne from Dusk Petal Dust seems pretty strong given the vulnerable and the -1, -2. So it also allows you to play more flexible. Like if you're on even, you just play your Nocturne on 4 potentially. If you're on odd, you can play your Nocturne on 3. So Dusk Petal Dust from the Duskbringer is an awesome card that is going to be really appealing. And kind of similar things here, like sometimes you can Diana on 2 with Dusk Petal Dust, other times you do it on 3 with like a 1-drop, depending on your attack token. So that's something that I already really like. Like the Nightfall deck looks really interesting to play and build and sequence, which is cool. one of the more interesting archetypes that are more obvious from the cards that we know so far. So I'm pretty excited to mess with that. And then we have Hush. It's a 3-cost burst spell. You silence a unit this round, and you create a fleeting Hush in hand. So obviously, if you have ways to turn the fleeting Hush into a rear card by cycling, like Rummage and stuff like that, that's neat. It's not that great, like it's kind of expensive, but it has some decent applications. Like you can silence your own Frostbite units, you can silence stun units, you can silence utility stuff from the opponent in response to spells. It also works on champions, so you can silence something like a Yasuo in response to a Roar. Not the most common thing happening in high-level constructed, to be honest, but it's still a thing. Same can sometimes be the case with something like elusive or fearsome units, like silence an Ezreal and block it, silence a Swain to jump block it, or ignore it and stuff like that. There are a bunch of options and you can use it multiple times, which is neat, but it's also kind of expensive and often not worth the investment of a card and a bit situational. It's the kind of card that I could see some of the like more mid-rangey decks ending up running like a one-off as just kind of like the nice flexible utility for the occasional like big impact plays, but not a card you usually want multiples and want to see all the time. But yeah, it's kind of an interesting card to exist, and interesting that it affects champions as well, unlike something like Purify. Also, it sort of works like a temporary Purify. So, for example, it still helps against a Dehu and stuff. So, in a way, it's probably a bit better than Purify, but not by that much. And Purify is kind of situational and also cheaper and a bit more flexible since it is permanent. But yeah, it's an interesting card to exist. It'll probably show up here and there the same way that Purify does. So it is comparable to Purify in its relevance and playability, although I think Purify is a bit better overall, especially in the right metagames. And last but not least, we have the kind of odd Poro cannon, which is relevant in the sense that it is a great Nightfall enabler because it's a 0-cost burst spell. To play it, you discard one card and you get 2 Daring Poros in hand. So it's a great addition to sort of the Porotron deck that I recorded quite some time ago, and Braum and Poro stuff got changed, because this is another great addition to this sort of Poro style deck, because Daring Poros are among the best Poros, and especially in a deck with like a lot of Poro snacks and stuff. Getting a bunch of 1-cost 1/1 elusives is great. It's also technically great in sort of like a Taskmaster, Von Yip type deck where you make a bunch of 1-cost elusives. These decks probably won't become super competitive with this card, but they become a bit stronger and a bit more interesting. And I mean, the 0-cost burst spell is certainly interesting in a world of Nightfall and stuff, although I have a harder time believing that PNZ Targon Nightfall is super likely to be a thing, but maybe it's one of the less obvious things that might make more sense if you can look at all the pieces together, evaluate them, see how they fit together, and see if there's a sort of not as linear and as obvious strategy that makes sense. And I mean, there is a reason why they included it here, because it plays well with Nightfall, because they usually add these sort of odd cards that fit better. The other thing actually is we didn't see PNZ, so it's actually possible that the last champion in the next 2 days will actually be the PNZ champion, and we only get 3 Targon champions, which is very possible and reasonable. I did forget what the PNZ champion was, though. I will need to look that up, because we had all of them leaked and at some point. But yeah, it is possible. The fact that we have a PNZ card here makes it actually reasonably likely that we get PNZ as the last champion rather than a 4th Targon champion, which is solid. I mean, 3 Targon champions for the new region gives us something to mess around with, and it would be odd for them to include one or a few PNZ cards without a champion. I think they usually only include cards for regions that also get a champion, but I could be wrong. Maybe we get cards for all 8 regions, including Targon, but only champions for like 3 regions plus Targon. That is the other possibility. So yeah, it'll be either, like my bet is it'll be either the PNZ champion or Aurelian Sol as the last champion, but we'll find out tomorrow if it's PNZ or Targon, and on today actually, and we'll find out tomorrow whether it is Aurelian Sol or another Targon champion, in case it is Targon and not PNZ. But yeah, what do you think about all these spoilers? Diana looks kind of cool, a bit weak on the front side, but maybe she's gonna play a bit better than she looks. And maybe she's meant as a bit more of a later, of a situational early play, or a later play once you level her. Depends a lot on how good Nightfall will be and how many Nightfall cards you end up playing. But yeah, Pale Cascade is another card that's gonna be playing a huge role in leveling Diana, because it's sort of a free Nightfall thing. It's a good, cheap Nightfall card that also replaces itself and helps you find more Nightfall, sort of cycle through your deck, generate some velocity, which is nice. Alright, yeah, I'm pretty excited. I can't wait to mess around with these cards once we get them on the 26th. Nocturne, Diana, Nightfall is one of the first things I'll probably try and brew, because it's the kind of style that I really like. And the other thing that I'm looking forward to is some Taric, Lulu, or like general like Lulu support type stuff. There are some cool, interesting things. The Leona deck is probably going to be pretty robust, but also looks a bit boring and a bit lame, a lot of linear thing. But yeah, we'll see. And Trundle, to be honest, is the one champion in the one region that doesn't really connect well with the rest of the Targon cards we saw so far, and doesn't really fit in there well, and also is kind of generic. But there might still be some interesting things to do, but like less obvious and less like, oh, this is cool, I want to try this. But yeah, that's it again for this batch of spoiler reviews. I'll be back with the last 2 batches of spoilers to round out the whole series, and then we'll get the new cards already. So that's it again for this time. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button down below. Don't forget to subscribe on your way out. Show the sponsor in the description some love. You can find the sponsorship deal down below, as well as all the other information like my live stream and so on, other ways to support. Just check it out if you're interested. And yeah, that's it for today. I'm your host ManuS, and I thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.